Hello, friends and fellow entrepreneurs. Welcome back to the Engler Journey podcast. Today, we will hear from a friend of mine, fellow alum of Engler, and the founder and CEO of Exact Archery. He's a COVID start, and their mission is to deliver the highest quality products at the lowest possible price for bow hunters. So thank you, and welcome to the podcast, Jake Wilkins.
Hey, thank you so much, Haley, for having me. I really appreciate it, and it's always good to be back in this space.
Yes. Yeah, you never were a student in the Dinsdale space, so you were an authentic Miller Hall native.
I was, and I remember there were times where we would do some renovation in there that the university didn't know about, and then we would just they'd come in and be like, "You can't paint those walls," and we're like,
"Watch us."
Yeah. Whoops, sorry, they're already done. You want us to go back and paint them white again?
Rule breakers.
Yeah.
Rule breakers.
For sure. I think that's the way Engler has kind of been throughout this whole process in the past 10 years.
Right. Yeah, it's we just had our decade report come out.
Yes, I did see that. It's awesome.
It is out there. People are seeing it, and it's a really, really cool report if you haven't had a chance to look at it.
It goes to show how much value this program and the numbers put behind it, how valuable this program has been to the state of Nebraska and how much tax revenue it's generated. So I don't think there's that many programs out there that can actually put numbers to it, but the Engler program has been able to do it. So it's been cool to see.
Right. And I think in a day and age where sometimes it's test scores and people are constantly looking at what grade did I get. The Engler program it's different, and there's nothing like it.
Yeah. I've been able to be on a few other of these podcasts, just with some other bow hunters and that sort of stuff, and they say, how did you get started? Where did you learn about it? And I always plug the Engler program, and it's been kind of cool to see Fox News and some of these people do some thing with Anna Coombs about her program and what she's been able to do, and so it's starting to get some national attention, and it's
crazy.
Been good.
It's crazy.
It is.
Yeah, because we started in this little brick building, which is kind of crazy to think about, but
absolutely.
Cool. Well, I want to get into your story, how you started, and then we'll get into some of the tactics and the things that really keep that boots on the ground going. So you're originally from Ainsworth.
Yep, Ainsworth, Nebraska, born and raised.
Born and raised. Now we live in Columbus.
Yep.
Cool.
My wife, and then I have a 20-year-old son, Mattson, and a 6-year-old daughter, Gemma. So we're not getting much sleep at our house, but it's been a huge blessing to be a little bit closer. So I just moved back from Northeast Iowa in August, and that's about when I started Exact Archery, after I got my feet kind of planted on the ground and found a need and was able to kind of address it.
And this is not your full-time gig, right?
Nope. So I am currently what they would call a customer business advisor for Bear Crop Science. And what I do is I work with larger growers in the state of Nebraska, primarily in kind of east central Nebraska. And I advise on seed, crop protection, and our technology platforms. And I'm kind of that, what you'd call a trusted advisor to some of these growers, and it's been good to see different farming operations, how each of them work, and I personally think that farming is going to change a lot in the next 5 years, and just being a part of that's going to be really, really cool.
That will be really cool, and especially in a state where it's so important. So I'm excited to see where you go with that.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk a little bit about how you have a full-time job and how this is only your side gig, but you also started so many other businesses. But first I want to dive into a little bit of your college experience. So you graduated from Ainsworth, you came to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and talk about some of those experiences and then the knowledge you gained from the Engler program that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, so I graduated from Ainsworth in, what would it have been? It was 2015, I believe. And so by being able to grow up in a small town, I got to see, you knew everybody knew you, they knew your family, everything like that. So I think, looking back at my experience, I was never a great student. And the more podcasts I listened to and the more I listened to other people that have had that have grown up and maybe had disabilities or something like that, seems like they always overcame challenges in their life at early ages. So when I was in third grade, I found out I was dyslexic, and I was never diagnosed, but I probably have ADD or ADHD or whatever, because that's really common with being dyslexic as well. So going through some of those challenges, reading and writing at a young age, I kind of had to overcome some of my fears of like talking, because I had to be a better communicator in that way instead of having to be great at like reading and writing. So I did that. I never was a great student. I didn't do good on my ACT. And I actually, the first time I applied to Nebraska, I didn't get in. So I was like kind of devastated by that. And it was just a huge ordeal of me, like, you know, not going to Nebraska. And then it was a couple months later, I had became a state FFA officer. And I remember at the time I went into Ronnie Green's office, and he was still over here at the university. And I hope at some point I can see Ronnie and just like tell him how everything's kind of transpired and like see where we go from here. But anyway, I went over there, and then Dean Waller at the time, I went down to his office, and they said, here's the next steps. Here's what we need to do. We need you to do an appeal letter, make sure it comes over here to East Campus for us or whatever. And I remember I was sitting, like, at that point, I didn't check my emails very much because I was just a high school kid. And I remember getting on my email, like, whatever. It was like a month after, and I was just scrolling through emails that came a month earlier, and I saw, it was like in May, and they're like, you're accepted to the University of Nebraska. And I was just like a relief of like, every emotion just lifted off my shoulders. And so anyway, I came to the University of Nebraska. I got involved in the Engler program and ended up being a part of a National Honor Society. You know, if you would have told me that when I was a senior in high school, I would have never thought that. But once you find your passion and what you're really passionate about, it's easy. Everything comes a lot easier. And you start doing well in other facets of your life. And so that's really what helped me to propel me through my college experience and now into the working world, I guess. Right.
I had never known that you were dyslexic.
Yeah.
I never knew that. And so I think it's interesting because I don't know a lot about it, and I need to probably do my research. But how do you think that's helped you as a student and as a person and as an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. I think the thing that I've found is like, and it's a lot easier now than what it used to be because you've got audiobooks. I remember when I was younger, like nobody knew, like in public school system, nobody knew how to like take care of it. It was like the kids who were really, really far behind in school, and then the other kids who were just part of the school. So when I started going to town school, because I went to a one-room country schoolhouse until I was in the third grade, they started doing some like reading and writing tests, and I was like on a first grade level in third grade for like reading and writing. I think my reading was like at a kindergarten level, so I was really, really low, and they were like, wow, we need to get this, like, we need to figure out what's going on here. So anyway, they didn't really know how to address it, and so like I got put into different classes in reading and writing and some of that sort of stuff. And I think probably the thing that's really taught me is like always think outside the box. No matter what you do, like always be willing to think outside the box and find new ways to do things. Because like when I was in high school, what I would do is I would like turn on like voice to type. So I would do like, I would say it, and then I would go back. And one thing that I do on all my emails today is I've got Grammarly too. So like, it makes me sound a lot smarter. I'm like, oh yeah, that way is way better than the way that I wrote that. So it's amazing what new technologies come out, even since I was like, even in high school to now. But I think you look at it as outside the box thinking, and that's really what's helped me to get to where I am today. So
would you say it propelled you as a business owner?
It kind of. I definitely feel like I said, the ability to communicate, like, nobody's great at everything, and I found that, you know, being a problem solver is what business owners are. At the end of the day, that's what business owners are. They're solving complex problems, or even not even complex problems, but like they're solving needs that people have. And while being able to find needs and then addressing those needs, like I feel like personally I've had the opportunity to see things from like a different lens and be like, hey, that's a problem. And people are like, what do you mean that's a problem? And I'm like, look, like you could do it way easier if you did it this way. And I think that's kind of helped me to, propel me into being a business owner today. And like also the fact of like being able to fail, because I failed so many times when I was a kid and everything. Like I didn't get good grades. I didn't get whatever. So by failing those many times, I'm just like, it's just a part of life.
Right.
Some people fail and they're like, I'm a failure. They tie their worth to like one time when they fail. And instead of being able to do that, you're like, hey, I'm moving forward from this. And I know that this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. And I'm learning a ton from whatever I failed at.
Right. Failure is really hard in the moment, but then you look back at it, and I think some of the greatest failures that we've had are some of the biggest things that propel us forward.
Absolutely. I 100% agree, Haley. And it, before the Engler program, I didn't think of this all by myself. Before the Engler program, I never really looked at it that way. And like I said, like I really struggled my first year in college just because like I was seeing myself as like being a failure because, some of the classes I took, I wasn't getting good grades at and whatever. And literally, I remember coming into Miller Hall at the time, and it was like, fail forward, fail cheap, and fail often. And so, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but, like, know that, like, you're going to fail. Just fail as cheap as possible and make sure you're not taking a step back when you fail. Make sure that you're moving on and growing from that.
You just gave me the chills. That was good. I want to just go back a little bit to Engler because I think all of us here can relate a little bit in how Engler served us. But what do you think is something that you gained or knowledge that you learned from Engler in your college years that you would want every entrepreneur to know, whether they're at the beginning phase, middle, or right on the boots in the ground, kind of like you are? What's something that you gained from Engler that
helped me from there? Well, I think there's a lot of lessons I learned from Engler, but I think the biggest thing is like find a group or a tribe of people that you can solve a problem for. Like find a group. And I'm starting to read some of these books and listen to some podcasts and stuff of like, you only need 1,000 customers. Like that's all you need. Or you only need 100 customers. So if you can make $1,000, and I'm saying this like they're just like people to take money from. It's not that way. Like if you can solve a problem where somebody's going to pay you $100 to solve that problem, and you can find 1,000 people, just 1,000 people, where they will pay you $100 to solve that problem, you have a business, right? And so I think the thing that it taught me is like, you don't have to solve a problem for like everyone in the world. Like you don't have to create something that everyone in the world is going to use. Like there are so many subsets of people that are trying to solve like really big problems for like huge people and everything. And not saying that you can't help solve those problems, but like when you're first getting started, you need to find a very subset of people to be able to really solve a problem for. Because once you get them in your camp and you're like, hey, I'm just trying to help you out. And they're like, oh my gosh, like what can I do to help? And then it's like, well, hey, maybe you can do this, or maybe you can help promote this, or like if you tell your friends about us, then we can give you a discount on these next, whatever that you have. In my business, it's broadheads. And so really just like finding that group, making them feel like they're part of the group and part of the solution, and then being able to really grow your business and scale it that way is like helping people like feel like they're a part of something, because everybody wants to feel a part of something.
Right. Yeah. No, that's an awesome piece of advice. Solving problems is, when you're in the heat of it and you're like, what's my next business idea? That can be so frustrating because it could be something right in front of you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
What do you think prepared you to start Exact Archery?
So I would say, I'm going to step back a little bit and just talk a little bit about kind of the whole process of it. So I'd been bow hunting since I was about 13 years old. And I remember back then, broadheads that you put on the end of an arrow to harvest deer or turkeys or whatever, that they would cost anywhere between like $15 and $20 or something like that. And so anyway, what we would do is I would go out and buy those broadheads, or I would buy them online or buy them at Cabela's or whatever. And then I remember like 2 years later, everybody like bumped up their prices, and it went from like $15 to $20 to like $40. So they like everything doubled it. And what I found out just recently here is like when it goes through retail, nobody wants to put something on their shelf where they're not going to make $20 or $30 off of it. So by being able to really find the need of like, how do we cut out retail because things are going more online, and how do we provide a high quality product at a fraction of the price for bow hunters, and being able to, you know, bypass all the stuff that doesn't need to be there, and people can just go right online and order broadheads. And I think the one thing is like that Engler taught me about that is, you know, never like underestimate the power of like social media and marketing and all that sort of stuff, because today's day and age with like social media and stuff, you can do anything. You can really, I mean, and you only need one break. Like you only need one video to go viral, and then you've got like tons of these customers who are like begging to like be like, how do I order this or how do I order that? And that's kind of what our process looked like. We put it on a TikTok, and it got like 10,000 views in the first like 2 days. And it was just showing us like our broadhead compared to competitors' broadheads. And it was like, people were like, where do we order it? And I had like a Google site at the time, and like it was just really clunky. You had to put in your PayPal, and like people were like, well, I don't have a PayPal account. So it's like, okay, just Venmo me, whatever. So it was like, it was really clunky. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's a need out there. Now I got to build a business and build like a website that's going to like help attract people. So it's not just some sketchy like Google form that I have to fill out or whatever. So it only takes one big break to be able to get you to like, in finding the needs and like finding paying customers, because that's what it takes. So
that's so crazy that you blew up on, because that, would you say you blew up on TikTok first?
Yeah. So I would say it was TikTok, and I had never really used TikTok before, but like the hashtags, and I found out like some of the algorithms and stuff behind it too. Like if you're not paying for advertising, then it's not necessarily like, they've changed algorithms. So like now you have to pay for them to get more views and all that stuff. But like on your first video, they like you to get really exposed. So you come back to TikTok and like, oh, I got 10,000 views on my first one. So yeah, just making sure that you've got good hashtags and that on like some of your first video and some of your first content. And then like, they don't let you do this like continuously, but just start following people. Like you look up like bow hunting under TikTok, and then just start following people. And then they just start, then like people start seeing your feed and then their content and all that stuff. And then next thing you know, like I've had a lot more interactions with Instagram now, because people like, it's easier to message, it's easier to like get them in contact with your products, and like you can put in a website, and it's just a lot easier. But a lot of our stuff is just done on our website now, and then we've just started going to trade shows too, and had really, really good success there.
Yeah,
so it's fun.
I've seen that, and I hope to see you at one of them here coming up soon, but we'll talk about that later. But what advice would you have? You found a problem in the marketplace. You not only created a product, but like you acted on it. So what advice would you have for people that found a problem in the marketplace but haven't taken action because they don't know where to start?
Action is always the toughest part. I mean, no matter what you're doing, like if you're going to go work out in the morning, like that's always the most challenging thing to do, is like get yourself out of bed, get yourself taking that first step, whatever the case might be. My biggest thing is like find a way to do it the cheapest possible. Like there's so many easy and free ways to like find a market in today's day and age, like social media or whatever. Like I remember there was a gal who was looking at doing like supplements for cattle, like show cattle, because you buy one bag of something and you end up using only half of it during the year. And I remember hearing her business pitch, and I'm like, you need to do that. And like, you need to do that like now. Like, you need to go online and get some like packaging that you can do it. Like, it would cost you maybe a couple $100s to do it. And then just start putting it out on social media of like, hey, here's what we do. We ship to you, whatever the case might be. And then start going to like the state fairs and all that stuff, and then start building your business out. But like, it doesn't take a lot of money to do something. Like, I think that's, especially when you're in college and stuff, or if you're starting up like a side gig or whatever, everybody's like, well, I don't have, $5,000 sitting around. I can't do this. And I think that's what discourages a lot of people. If like they don't have instant success and they've invested $5,000, they're like, I can never start a business. If you can do it as cheaply as possible, as fast as possible, find customers and really start to build out that business with hardly any money tied up into it right away, I think that's really, really important. So I guess I would just say, like, if anyone's looking to start a business, like, do it as cheap as possible, start off and try to do it and find customers really fast too. And I know that's easier said than done, but like, just go out and like to a trade show, or like go out and reach out to people who have already had success in the industry and like ask them to be mentors for you, because everyone wants to help somebody. So I would just say, like, do it quick, be an activator in it, and just really just push to make it happen as fast as possible.
Right. Yeah. You talked about, and luckily for the wildlife, not big game conservation, but like the wildlife community here in Nebraska, I feel like it's pretty large compared to other states. So your customers at those trade shows, and so I think that really helps. What advice would you have for people trying to communicate with their customer, or how to find their customer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for myself, it was actually like, I never thought about doing some of these big game trade shows or anything like that, but I was on a podcast with a guy. So I reached out to a guy, and he was like, hey, you need to come out and do the Indiana Deer, Game, and Turkey Expo. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, we'll see. And so then I started doing some research on it, and they're like, they have like 6,000 people come through the door that are big hunters, fishermen, all that sort of stuff. And so I'm like, I think that would be a good thing to get into. So then Nebraska, they had a big one. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I can get into that one. So I got into that one and like did 10 times better than I thought we were going to do.
Did you
and
sell
I'm like,
out?
We almost sold out. Like, we sold way more than I thought we were going to.
Sweet.
And I'm like, wow, like, people are willing to pay for the product that we have, because we are selling the product for about 60% less than what others are, and we're using the same manufacturers the big guys are. But by being able to cut out all the middleman, we're giving them a better price on their product. And so anyway, like, I'm like, holy cow. So then this last weekend I went out to Indianapolis for that trade show, and like did way better than I thought we were going to do there. And then I've got one in Kearney coming up this weekend, the Nebraska Bowhunters Association one, and then one in Kansas City in the next weekend after that. And so, like, trade shows, you get a lot of people's contact information, they follow you on social media, and then they just become repeat customers. So I would just say, like, finding wherever that group or that tribe of people consolidate at, and then, like, setting up a booth, or like setting up something, or like reaching out to them on email or anything like that is huge. As well as, like, one thing that I did when I first started out was all the bow hunters associations from every 50 states I sent an email to, because you can find their information online and be like, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's the product I have, if you have anybody who's interested, this is where you can find us at on the website. And we got people like ordering right there right away. And so then from that, they're like, hey, would you like to donate to, our bow hunters association? And it's like, yeah, I'll donate some broadheads for you to sell or raffle off at your trade show or whatever. And then that builds camaraderie with those people. And they're like, wow, we want to help somebody who's willing to help us. So yeah.
Have you gained a lot more knowledge and learned a lot more about hunting and like the wildlife here in Nebraska through this business?
I have. It's been really good. So everyone thinks of me as like, they're like, Jake, you must be like a huge big time hunter. Like you must be.
That's kind of what I thought, and I never knew that about you.
Exactly. You must be like a huge big time hunter. And actually I'm not like a huge, like I like to hunt and I like to bow hunt and everything. But more than anything, like I just found a need and I addressed the need first to solve my own problem and then to solve other people's problems as well. And so like I hunt deer and turkey and all that stuff, but I'm not like chasing bear in Alaska and all that stuff. But it's been really fun to learn a little bit more about kind of the process and how hunting is, how hunting and bow hunters interact here in the state of Nebraska, but like finding out how much bigger it is like nationally. Like I'm looking at it that scope today more than I was like even 6 months ago.
Right. Okay, so I want to go into a little bit of part of the reason you're here is because you have an entrepreneurial mindset that makes you unique. And yes, you have an 8-to-5 job, but we'll get into how it's a side gig later. But what do you think it is that make entrepreneurs tick? Like, what is it about their mindset that is so different compared to those who work an 8-to-5 job and they go home?
So I would say, I think there's always this stigma around entrepreneurship of like entrepreneurs they're either born or they're made, or they're one or the other. And I think really, the younger generation or our generation, millennials and Gen Zs, are wanting to be more flexible in what they're doing, and they also want to feel like they're a part of something. And I feel like that's kind of the cross-section of where like entrepreneurship comes in. I will say that, as entrepreneurs, I think anyone could be an entrepreneur. Really, what entrepreneurs is like, it's not sexy. It's not like some great thing of like, I need to be an entrepreneur so I get out of the rat race and quit my own job. Like in a lot of cases, if you're going to become an entrepreneur, you're going to work harder than you did at your 9-to-5 job. And like people who are like, oh, I want to get out of being this so that I can trade it for like sitting at home on the couch and like just letting money just come into me because I'm an entrepreneur. No, like you have to figure out all the complex problems from the beginning to the end when you're a business owner and when you're an entrepreneur. The thing is like anyone, I feel like in my current job, like working in 8-to-5 is like, I hope I'm an entrepreneur in my job, like my 8-to-5. I hope that I am helping find problems and helping find solutions, because that's one thing that my boss talks to me about all the time is like, what value are you creating at your job? And if you're not coming with solutions to problems, like you're literally just sitting there and gaining a paycheck. But how are we actually solving problems at the level of like understanding how things work and then coming up with solutions? I feel like more people in business are looking for that trait more and more every day. So if you're able to do that a couple of times with your manager or your boss or whoever, that makes a huge difference in like how you view your job and how you are able to perform well at your job. And then if you're really, really good at your job and you bust your tail and do things the right way, that'll be recognized, and you're going to be able to be better. When you're a better employee, you're also better at becoming an entrepreneur as well, just because the work that it takes to solve problems, and then you can take that and move that over into your side business as well.
That kind of leads me into my next question of, you have a full-time job, this is your side gig, but you have 2 kiddos at home and a beautiful family. So, and I think part of the stigma that I see in business owners is that something's always got to give or something's always on hold. 1, do you believe that? And 2, how do you invest intentional time as a business owner into all those areas of your life?
That's a really good question. So I would say, yes, something at some point probably has to give. But I would challenge everyone to like look at their screen time on their phone. Like go in, look at your screen time on your phone. Like how many hours are you spending like scrolling through social media, or like how many hours are you doing not intentionally with whatever you're a part of and like not getting your work done? Because I'll challenge everyone with this is like, you can, if you're really working hard at what you're doing and like you spend 3 good hours on something, or like even you block it up into 3 hours and you take a 10-minute break in between and you're like grinding away at something, like you can get a lot of work done in 3 hours. I think a lot of people just look at the time clock and like, oh, I have to fit everything that I do with work in 40 hours, and then I have to spend 20 hours with my family, and then I have to work 20 hours on my side business, whatever. Like, honestly, just work really hard, do sprints during the day, and allow you to like open up free time throughout the day and like spend less time on your phone or spend less time. You just need to be more intentional with our time, because like my biggest pet peeve is when somebody says like, I don't have time for that. Okay, we all have the exact same amount of time in the day. It's how are you prioritizing your time? Because like if I'm sitting there and having, sitting scrolling through social media for 2 hours a day, like I could spend that with my kids, or I could spend that with my wife, or I could spend that working on the business or whatever. And I'm still not great at it today. I need to do a better job of that. But kind of what my morning routine looks like is I try to wake up at 4:45. I go and work out at the gym, and then I'm working on the business from like 6:30 to like 7:45 in the morning, and then I start my 8 to 5. Sometimes, then I come home, have dinner with kids, hang out, we maybe go for a walk, whatever, and then like if there's time after that in the evenings, like I'll do work on my business. But I would say if you're married, you have a spouse, whatever, setting those boundaries first of all and being like, hey, I need 4 hours today to work on my business if it's Saturday or whatever, and just setting those expectations of like, I'm not doing this because this is something that like I really want to do. Personally, I think entrepreneurs get that mixed up sometimes, is like, I'm doing this because I'm so afraid of failing that I have to work really hard at doing this, or I have to set aside intentional time to do this. So I know everybody's 9 to 5 looks a little bit different, but literally I grew up on a farm, and like 40 hours, if you didn't have 40 hours in by Wednesday, then like you weren't working that hard on the farm. Exactly. So like I think everybody's like, oh, 40 hours, like I just want to hang out. Like, what are you doing in the rest of your week? Everybody's like, you have so many hours in a week. Like 40 hours is just like a small segment of it.
What habits have you put into your daily schedule since, you graduated college, became a husband? What habits have you put into your schedule that you think entrepreneurs and business owners should always have?
So I was just listening to a podcast the other day that was saying like, there's 365 days in a year, but how do you double that? How do you double that 365 and maybe even triple it? So like, what if you looked at your day instead of one 24-hour span? How do you look at it as 3 8-hour spans? So like from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., like that's one day. From 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., that's another day. From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., like that's another day, right? So how do you see that as like being really intentional with those 8 hours? And like by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm starting my next day. And like if you can start segmenting out your days into 2 or 3 different days, like it creates a sense of urgency. Like I didn't do anything from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. I didn't do anything. So like I wasted a day. But if you like look back and you're like, wow, I wasted a 24-hour day, you wasted 3 times more time than I did because I reset my day. I just think that way. I'm like, I need to reset my brain at 2 p.m. and be like, I've got a whole nother day. Like I've got half of this next day. I'm going to spend it on, working, and then the other half, the next 4 hours, I'm going to spend it with my family. So you can almost break it into, 6 different days or whatever. So like, I think it's something that I'm still working on. I'm not a professional at it yet, but I think it's just something that once you start looking at time differently, it helps you to be more intentional with it.
Right. That's interesting. I've never heard it put like that. So, very cool. Next question I have is, I took it off your social media, and I'm going to read it. It's, as a new company, you're not always where you want to be, but it's all about the process and being grateful for the customers we get to share the journey with. What does that mean, and where did it come from?
I think one of the things is like, when you're an entrepreneur, you're never satisfied with where you're at. But if you're able to reflect back on how many people you have been able to help over because that's all entrepreneurship is like helping people, solving problems, and getting paid for doing it, getting paid for solving complex problems. And the more complex a problem is, the more people will pay. I would say one of my strengths is sales. Like I'm not like a pressure salesman or like a really high stakes, like you have to buy this or whatever. I'm like, hey, here's my story. This is what I'm doing. We have them here to sell today. And I said, we sell them for the exact same price online. So you think about it, you walk around, you whatever. And a lot of times, like people, after you tell them your story and you're able to have that conversation with somebody, like they can't get their wallet out fast enough. Like it's like, they love what you're doing. You build that camaraderie and you build that rapport really quickly. And so by being able to do that, I think it shows you like, you're not always where you want to be ever in your entrepreneurial journey. You always wish that you were further ahead. And like, I think by listening to some other people and like, we're not in this alone. There's tons of podcasts. There's tons of YouTube content. There's tons of everything that like nobody's where they want to be. Like if you just reflect on like how good the process has been and like how much you've learned and all that, it helps give you that next boost of like, this is why I need to keep pushing. Because if I went off the market today, how many people would be hurt by that? And not only how many people would be hurt by that today, but how many people in the next 10 years will be hurt by this if I take this off the market or if I quit doing this or whatever. Because today, like in our business, there's nobody keeping the large broadhead companies in line. Nobody. Mm-hmm. So like, there's no competition for them. They just continue raising prices, and nobody out there is doing anything about it. And we're gonna help bow hunters by doing something about it.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing. Okay, so one of the events that I'm going to is the Big Game Conservation. It's my 11th year going to it. It's the one in Howells.
Oh yeah.
So I'm excited for that, but. One thing about the wildlife industry is I can see how passionate people are when it comes to big game and wildlife here in Nebraska and promoting and protecting it. So, that's really important probably for you as a business owner in this industry to communicate how passionate you are for this product to these customers. So how do you communicate the passion you have for this business?
So I think the one thing it is every time that I talk to a potential customer or a new customer, and it's tough doing it over social media. You need to be in front of your customers talking about it. But like one of the things is like, I always start off with this is like, as a business, we asked, why do broadheads have to be so expensive? And what we found is it made us sick every time we found out how much the margin was that all of these big retailers were taking to be able to keep them on the shelves. And what I found out was when you said, like, the biggest problem is, we're trying to figure out a solution to make broadheads cheaper. People are like, heck yeah, I'm on board with that. Like, how do you do that? It's like by going directly to consumers, by like cutting out all the middleman, cutting out all the things that are adding, margin into that, because the more hands that touch it, the more margin has to go up. And like when you tell them our prices, like we're $20 for a 3-pack, where our competitors are $45, $55, $65, some people even $100 for a 3-pack of broadheads. And they're like, really? Like, what do you do different? And it's like, we're just taking all that margin, giving it back to the bow hunters. I kind of say the joke of like you could buy our broadheads and go buy a case of beer and be further ahead than if you went and bought the competitors. So that's kind of like relating that to a customer. And like the biggest thing is for me is, big game in Nebraska is a big thing, but like from a national and a like international scope, like we have someone in South Africa who's starting to use our broadheads on some of their safari stuff. And like the scope of people that you think you can impact isn't just like here in the state, but like that's where it started. And then once you get that tribe built up, next thing you know, you've got people from South Africa contacting you. Like when we were in Indianapolis, I think I'm going to go to South Africa and do a safari hunt. Wow. And anyway, it'll be interesting because like they're like, I want to sell these. Like I want to have them in our pro shop. I want to whatever. So we're going to be getting some content on like people using them in South Africa and all over the world starting. And so it'll be interesting to see how that relationship continues to be built over the years. But it's fun.
I love hearing about it because I think the ultimate goal every entrepreneur wants to have is to make money overnight. And you're doing that. So that's really awesome. You write handwritten notes to every customer. You still do that today, and why? Yeah.
So we just started doing that probably in the last 2 months. But like every person wants to feel like they're a part of something, like we talked about earlier. And the more that you can make it personal, like we're not a big company. We're not huge. We're not trying to, just like basically take away money from somebody and just give you a crap product. Like we want you to feel invested in this, because when you feel invested, you're going to tell your friends about it, and your friends are going to tell their friends about it. And then it's just this huge ripple effect. And so we still do that today. That's one of our big things is every time we get an order, we'll send a handwritten note to them and thank them for their business, because like I said, we're not trying to be a huge corporate broadhead company, but we're just trying to help out the little guys.
Right. That's awesome. Especially for where bow hunting can get very expensive. I mean, by the time you buy a bow,
yes,
the rest of it's good, but got to get that first initial investment. Tell me about the day that you realized this is going to work.
So there's still days where I'm like, well, is this going to work or not? So like, I think like sometimes you think it's like going to be really glamorous and there's going to be a lot of like people ordering like every day and all that stuff. But I feel like after I get done with every trade show and after we're counting up some of our profits and we're looking at it and saying like, wow, like people paid us this much for buying, this many of our products. Like we're just so grateful for it. And I think being able to generate income, like significant income in that first like 6, 8, 9 months will really help you to continue to catapult you. Like whatever business you have to start generating revenue, because that's a lot of times what motivates entrepreneurs is like, I need to get out of, like, I've made this initial investment. I need to start making money so that I can start seeing progress. And then once you're able to have that progress, you're able to really say, wow, this is actually working. It's going to work. And we need to continue pushing forward with it. So, it's one of those things where there's a lot of days where I'm like, you don't see an order come in for a couple days or something like that. And you're like, wow, okay. Need to buckle up and ramp up and do some more marketing or whatever. Yeah. And I think the best thing that you can do as a small business is be really personal and find people's emails, reach out to people, say thank you for your business, like do some marketing within the people that are currently buying from you and say, hey, if you refer a friend, I will give you 10% discount off your next order or something like that.
Run a promotion or something.
Yep.
Cool.
Exactly.
Cool. Good advice. So you're the only one doing this, right?
Yep. Well, like the only one in the industry, or like anybody?
I guess like the only one running Exact Archery.
Yes.
You don't have any other like part-time
Nope.
helpers.
I'm
the wife, but
only. Yes.
maybe that's about it.
Paige is very good at packaging them and putting them in boxes, and she's really good at like helping and being supportive that way.
Mm-mm. How has she played a role in this business?
I feel like support as a spouse or a girlfriend or a fiance or whatever is really kind of a huge thing. Like Paige and I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable here, but Paige and I have had this conversation. Like, I don't go to the gym because I want to get fit. I go to the gym because I'm so afraid if I don't go to the gym, what it'll be like if I'm not fit. I don't start a business because I want the glamour of starting a business. I want to start a business because I'm so afraid of like being 80 years old and like not having any, like having regrets. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think it's probably not a healthy way to look at life, but like I'm so afraid of what will happen if I don't take action that I take action. Mm-hmm. Like I have to take action. Mm-hmm. So like once we figured out, like Paige understood that from me, that like that's why I do a lot of things that I do, is because out of fear of like what could happen if I didn't do it. And I think if we're able to have that type of relationship and be vulnerable with our significant other with that, then that opens their heart up to be like, wow, like I want to support you in doing this because like I don't want you to feel like you're having to do this out of fear, and like I'm basically being the one like holding you back, like being so fearful over here, and then you kind of pulling me over here and being like, hey, I need you to help me with XYZ, which so I think when we're both moving in that direction, it takes a lot of the fear off me too, because she's supportive of me. Yeah.
That's important. I think everyone has a little bit of fear of not doing it with the best intention possible at the end of the day, or the wrong intention. You know, we always want to have good intentions at everything we involve ourselves with. So being a better father and serving your family, I'm sure, is at heart every day. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And I feel like as people, like personally, I think God really puts, he gives people innate strengths so that they are able to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm good at this. And like, if you don't use that to the purpose that it's supposed to be used towards, like, I feel like personally, like I have a right, or I have an obligation to, this world, to use those strengths to the best of like, bringing glory to his kingdom. And I feel like that is something that's really helped me to understand, like here's my strengths. What am I going to do with it? Like sitting on the couch on Saturday watching football, like I love doing that. But like if that's all I'm doing, then I'm probably not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's awesome. Just gave me the chills again. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been really good. What is next for Exact Archery?
I think probably the biggest thing is like continue to run the business. Like we're the only one in the industry even challenging any of these big broadhead companies today. I think we're trying to refine our processes so it becomes more streamlined. So like getting a label printer and like getting more packaging in bulk so that we don't have to pay so much every time we do it. But like streamlining that process, and then also like being better at like blocking time to work on, that part of the business every once in a while is like going to be really big moving forward, because I love what I do on my 8 to 5 or my 9 to 5 job. I love it. And so I don't want to give that up. And, there's a lot more, it takes the stress off when you've got a great job and you're able to, find solutions in other areas of life. And then it makes me better at my job because I have an entrepreneurial mindset and I have, kind of the problem-solving mentality.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, that's awesome. So really, really fast, this hasn't been the only business you've ever started, right?
Correct.
Yeah. When are you still continuing any of those other businesses you started back in Engler?
Yeah. So I started company called Pickup, and we connected drivers of pickups with loads that needed to be hauled all over the United States. And like, it was a great, like, it was stressful because like, I mean, there was DOT, like, I mean, there was just so many things that like, I remember being super stressed out a lot of times about it. But anyway, what I did was when I graduated, we kind of discontinued that business and kind of gave all the contacts and everything over to some people who could kind of run with it. And so I didn't continue on with that business, but it definitely was kind of a unique business model, and there was like 2 markets that you had to connect, like shipping and truckers and pickup truck drivers or loads that needed to be hauled. And so anyway, that business helped propel me into this business because I learned and I failed forward. And I knew that I always had that itch of like wanting to start another business. And in August it happened. So
how was it? How did you know it was time to quit?
So at that point in time, I moved out to northern Indiana and I loved it. But I knew that like it was going to take up more of my time than I could have, like that I had at that time. So I was like, you know, if you're not generating a significant amount of money, I feel like some people are like, I need to start a business or I need to have a 9-to-5. Like you can merge both of them together. And my biggest thing was like, I couldn't do my 9-to-5 well, and I couldn't give it the attention I needed it to do, and like it wasn't generating like as much revenue as I needed it to. So like I think a lot of times we're trading time for money, and like if the money's not worth the time you're putting into it after like a year or like 2 years or whatever it was, I think it was almost 2 years, I'm like, probably need to find something else that I'm doing, because I could go mow lawns and make as much or more money and have way less stress on my life by being able to do that. So anyway, that's when I kind of knew, and it helps me to create some really good friendships and some really good connections as well over the years. So
yeah, we always talk about the value of quitting at Engler, and a lot of people think, oh, when I quit something that you're just giving up, you know, but there is a time to quit, and there's a time to fail, and there is a time that, you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely.
Okay, last question I have for you. How can the entrepreneurial community support you in your business?
Yeah, so you can find us online at www.exactarchery.com and on all the socials as well. I would say just, you know, follow along with the journey. Like if anyone has any feedback or like has any good marketing background or anything like that, like I'm just a one-man band trying to make it happen. So if like anyone ever has any advice on the marketing side and that sort of stuff, like I think that's the most help that I can possibly get. And, you know, any other opportunities to like share my story, I think it's really powerful because it holds entrepreneurs accountable. Like, are you growing? Are you dying? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? So anyway, I think those are kind of the ways. But yeah, everything Engler has given me so far has been great. So I cannot complain one bit.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I know the people and entrepreneurs listening are those who do have that 8-to-5 job, but don't know if they can start a side gig. You're living proof of being able to make something work and dedicate intentional time towards every area of your life and that 9-to-5 job, because it is something that you love to do, which is really important. But I just really appreciate your knowledge, your heart today, and for sharing your story, because it's unique. And I'm so excited to see where Exact Archery goes. It's crazy that you all started off of like a TikTok, you know, that just is crazy. I think a lot of companies are starting off of TikTok nowadays. Yeah. So it's been really cool to watch your journey.
Well, thanks, Haley. It's been really fun, and thank you for being willing to have me on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining.